So, if you're like me, you're constantly plagued by overthinking and thoughts of insufficientness and the feeling of not living your life out to the fullest. Or that could just also be me. But, anyways, yes, I just graduated high school, as the title says, and, I just wanted to drop some advice, some wisdom that anyone that's going through high school or is going to start going through high school now could look to. And I feel it is pretty good advice, especially looking back. I think it's important to say that I don't have any regrets about high school because I don't think there's ever a time where your life is made better by living with regrets. I think regrets will only hold you back and keep you in the past. So it's important to be like, I could have done better, but at the end of the day, I don't regret anything that I ever did, and I would live through it again. So anyways, just wanted to, give some advice. Right, so my first biggest piece of advice would definitely be to take advantage of the fact that you have friends, if you have friends, and if not, attempt to make them, right? Just to give a story with this advice, right? During my senior year, my last year of high school, I came to kind of get stuck almost in a self-improvement mindset where I was like, I need to be the best that I can. I need to stop, hanging out with my friends. I need to study. I need to be better. I need to edify myself. I need to be the best version that I can be. And I didn't realize it at the time. Thankfully, this started like halfway through senior year, and it lasted until about the end of the year. But thankfully for myself, like halfway through that, I started, going to the library for half of lunch and then hanging out with my friends at the second half. And going through some experiences like beach week, prom, graduation, it made me realize how lucky I am to have the amount of friends, because I do have a good bit of friends. I do have about, 3 different friend groups, and, I do have a large amount of friends. And like prom, just go through it, right? So prom, I would see people and kind of like, prom wasn't cheap either. It was like $90 for a ticket. And I would see people just kind of like sitting in the corner. They were by themselves, right? Different people that just kind of came to prom, I guess, because like, it's their high school prom. But like at the same time, they were lonely. And I'm like, well, damn, it's like, and then beach week, kind of like the thought of like other people that weren't able to go to beach week or didn't have the opportunity to go to beach week because they didn't have like the friends to go, like, or they just didn't have anybody to go with. It's like, it really made me realize like, wow, I am extremely lucky to have all the friends that I did. It's very lucky of me to have all this, and I did not like realize that until the end of the school year. Thankfully, like I said, I started hanging out with them again instead of being stuck in that self-improvement mindset. Otherwise, I would have been like, wow, I would have felt terrible. Like finishing high school, being like, wow, I could have just spent so much more time with my friends, So definitely like be appreciative of your friends if you have them, and if you don't have that many, do try to make some. It is, at the end of the day, life is determined by the other people that you interact with. You can try to isolate yourself as much as you can. You're gonna have to interact with other people. So tip number 1 for high school: take advantage of having friends and appreciate them. And if you don't, try to make friends. Alright, tip number 2 would be from me: don't be so preoccupied with school, right? What I mean is, don't be so preoccupied with doing as much studying as you can. Kind of tying into the first piece of advice, right? Don't make school everything about your personality. And I'm telling you, every kid that I've met like that is the most boring kid that you've ever been around, and no one wants to be around them. It's generally just not fun to be around this person because their only personality is school. If you try to talk to them about something outside of school, about life, about philosophy, about even like, I don't know, current events, they won't know anything. They'll just be like, You know, well, I get my classes. Am I right, guys? You know, class is hard. No, you need to find a balance. I'm not saying become completely hedonistic and just skip school to start partying every day, right? But I'm saying that you need to find the balance, and it's important. It's important to not fill up your schedule with so many extracurriculars and find no time for anything else. I don't remember where I saw this, but I believe it was some philosopher talking about how his dad would take the chance to go, everywhere. If someone asked him to hang out, he would go to a concert because it is you only have the one life, and I'll expand more on that in a future video about the meaning, how we find meaning in life, and how it's best utilized, right? But like, I think if your friends come up to you with an offer for a hangout, life is very unpredictable. You may have that group of friends that day, and then the next day, one of them, something bad happens, and you can't hang out with them anymore. So it's important to take advantage to socialize and be with your friends. Again, kind of tying into tip number one, right? Being appreciative of your friends. Do stuff with your friends, right? Don't just make everything about school when you're in high school. It's important to still have a social life, a life outside of it, because at the end of the day, high school is going to end. And if you make your whole life, your whole thing about being a good student, once high school ends, maybe you can do that in college too. But past that, how's that going to help you? How's it going to help you be a better person? Almost, right? If everything of you is about being a good student. So it's important that you take advantage of opportunities that pop up, right? If, all of your friends are like, yeah, man, let's go hang out. Let's go, go somewhere. Let's go do something. It's important to do that. I'm not saying hang out with them every day, right? Because at the end of the day, you don't want to become jaded with the experience to the point where the hangouts don't feel special anymore, right? But if your friends are like, yo, dude, new movie just came out, let's go watch this movie. Hey, I got a bunch of food that I can throw on the grill. Take advantage of that. Do that. Do those things. Hanging out with your friends, being social, that's really what it's all about, right? That's really what life is about. It's about the other people that you surround yourself with. So it's important not to drown yourself in extracurriculars that would make it so you're not able to do those things, right? That would make it so your whole life is just preoccupied by your extracurriculars and your school activities. So that's my tip number 2, right? Don't be so preoccupied with school. Right, so my third and final piece of advice for at least high school in regards to this video would be don't drown yourself in AP classes. Don't make your school life harder than it has to be. So just for a kind of like, kind of tie this in, a lot of kids these days, I've noticed this in my school, a lot of kids are very worried about, oh, how's this going to help me get into college? How's this going to help my resume look better? How's this going to, make me a better college applicant? And well, I think we're just overestimating how important college is to our life. College is at most 10 years of your life. On average, it's 4 years. And I really think that people are, they're kind of basing their life almost. They're like, especially in my school, I see it. Kids will, based how well they think they're going to do in life just off of college. That's 4 years of your life. You're basing what you think the rest of your life is going to be like off of 4 years, right? And that's terrible. That's a terrible thing to do. That's going to mess up your mind mentally because you're so important. You're so placing so much importance on this 4 years of life, and you're telling yourself, all right, this is going to make or break me. All right, so what I mean is mostly in the regards to AP classes, right? Personally myself, listing the AP classes that I took, I'm a big fan of history, kind of politics, government, all that stuff. So I took AP Human Geography, I took AP Modern World History, I took AP US History, I took AP Comparative Politics. I highly recommend Comparative Politics and AP World History. Human Geo is also pretty good. AP US History I could have done without. Was not enjoyable. I also took AP Psychology. AP Psychology was hands down my favorite class of all time. Super easy, straight A's in it, no effort. Like by the way, like I memorized this stuff. Like I said, eidetic memory, and this was important to me. So I memorized that stuff like down pat. 5 on the AP test, really easy. Did not study for it at all. Really good class, pretty easy. You won't stress out after it, and unless you're taking a major like computer science or something, it's hard for me to find a field where being knowledgeable in psychology won't help you, right? It's a pretty, cover all thing. But it's important not to take useless classes. For example, one of my friends at some point wanted to be a hematologist. If you don't know, that's like a scientist concerning blood and stuff, right? And he in our school, there, as I believe it is for many schools, there's a requirement for computer science, right? A computer science credit. And you could take, foundations of computer science or AP Comp Sci principles. And my friend took AP Comp Sci principles, and that kind of confused me because I was like, you want to be a hematologist, dude? Like, I feel like you're just kind of stuffing your brain with unnecessary information. And I do agree with Arthur Conan Doyle, as he posited the full Sherlock Holmes collection, as he posited in the Sherlock Holmes stories that, at the end of the day, your mind palace, your brain attic, is so limited in its space, and you can only have so much information in there. So I think it is important that you only fill up your mind palace with information that is pertinent to your field, what you want to do, right? AP psychology, like what I did. I'm considering a career in like a detective. I want to be a homicide detective, so I also took forensic science as well. How effective forensic science as a class was, well, that's something to be told. But again, really only take fields, really only take classes that are, going to be useful to you, or at least that you like, right? Not something that like, so of course, history and politics won't really be like helpful to me in being a homicide detective, but I like the class and I never really had a struggle in it, right? So if you can take the class and not struggle in it, then that's fine. Do that. But at the end of the day, it's not just about how your college application looks, right? Like if you want to be a computer science major, like I said, don't take AP psychology. It's really not going to help you. So it's about really, it's kind of self-improvement through doing less, if you will. Like, don't feel like, I'm going to keep it 100%. Like, when I took computer science, I took it senior year because of moving around and stuff. Most people will take it their freshman, sophomore year, but I took it a senior year, right? And I've always been a really good student, straight A's and stuff like that. But homicide detective, where is computer science going to help me in that, right? So I did kind of just clock out of that class, because it wasn't going to help me in my career. And not even taking the AP class, I was taking the on-level class, and it wasn't hard by any means. I got A's the first 3 quarters, and by the 4th quarter, I was just like, because it was kind of just like, put low effort and you'll get a good grade. But by the 4th quarter, I was like, dude, come on, like this isn't useful to me at all. So I'm filling up my brain with information it doesn't need. I don't need to know how to code to solve a crime, right? So, importantly, don't fill up your schedule with hard classes that aren't pertinent to you, right? If you want to be like a sports medicine major, don't be taking AP Modern World History. Like, there you go. Like, it's not going to be helpful to you. You're just filling up your brain with information that's not going to help you at all. It's not about college. It really isn't. Like, that's only 4 years of your life. It's not just about making the best college application, right? So that's about my third and final piece of advice, right? So to kind of review, first thing I would say, appreciate your friends. Appreciate that you have friends. If you don't, try to make more friends. Second piece of advice would be to make time for hangouts. Make time to have fun, right? Take every opportunity that you can to have fun. Don't overdo it. Don't be trying to hang out every day. But once a week is a good place to start. You know, you don't want to oversaturate the experience to the point where it's boring, but just once a week, you know, if especially if the opportunity comes to you and you don't have to make it yourself. You know, your friends are like, you know, hey, new movie out, let's go watch it. Take it, take the chance. It's not all about school. It's not all about high school. Uh, you really can't make it all about school. You got to have a life outside of school. And you know, number three would be don't fill up your schedule with hard classes. Try to study information that's only going to be useful to you. That's going to help you in the future. That's going to, you know, be applicable to otherworldly stuff. I did have a really smart math teacher that he would say like, and there's a point where you're learning stuff and you're learning how to do stuff. You know, I had a really smart math teacher. As we all know, math is required in, I mean, at least in my school, right? Throughout all 4 years of your high school. So what are you going to do, right? Like homicide detective, math will help you there. I mean, there's some points where math will help you, but at the end of the day, it's not really. And you know, we've all said it before, right? Like, how is knowing this problem going to help me later in life? Will math help me in real life? You know, we've all said it, like, you know, because yeah, some points of it is, unless you want to be a math major, physics, whatever in that area. How is the math going to help you? And I had a math teacher that would say like, you know what, maybe math isn't going to help you later on in life. He admitted that, right? But he would say like, learning how to learn stuff is always going to help you. It's always going to be good. And that was really smart, I think. You know, it is, you're not learning, maybe you're not learning something useful, but you're learning more about yourself. You're learning more about what's the best way that you learn. You know, what's the best way for you to learn. So yeah, that's like, so at the end of the day, if you're required to take a class, again, don't take a harder class than you need to if it's not going to help you, right? Don't take AP math classes if you're not going to major in math. But if you're required to, I guess I can't really say anything after I just admitted what I did in the comp sci class, but I don't know. I think there's a difference between comp sci and math. I think math is, there's a lot of math is everywhere, right? Computer science, computers have been around for what, past maybe 70 years, you know? It's really, yeah, but math has been around since forever, so that'll always be there. Anyways, there it is. That's my video. Just kind of general advice to you, high schoolers. If you're going through high school right now, you're going to start going through it soon, and it's going to help you to have a more favorable high school experience to look back on, for sure. There is more advice pertaining to high schoolers that I have, but this is kind of falling into different videos, stuff about like social media, why it's bad for you, you know, virginity and stuff like that. So I am making more videos on that, but like this was solely related to the academic part of high school. So, yep, thanks for watching, guys, and catch you later.